It is now the very last week of my vacation, and I'm making this video and others because I won't have a chance to freely navigate life once I start working. First of all, because I work far away from where I live, I work about 2 hours away. Oh, it's not 2 hours away, Pollyanna. My mom drives there and it's an hour. Sure, because she drives. I have to walk from my house all the way to a bus stop where I can take a bus to the station. And from that station, I take another bus. I have to wait about 20 minutes, give or take. So it takes 2 hours altogether for me to get to work every day just to get there. And then another 2 hours to come home. So I have very little time for myself to do anything on a daily basis. I spend about 10, 12 hours outside of my house and I come home. I'm super tired. I usually spend time with my husband and daughter. I eat dinner and I'm usually so tired. I go to bed. So I don't have a lot of time for myself to do things that I want to do. And on the weekends, I usually want to rest. And I have a lot of work to do on the weekends to prepare classes and so on. So this is my last week of freedom, officially. My face is a little shiny because of I have sunscreen on because I think the sun is coming out. I'm not sure. So I'm making this video. This video in particular is going to cover part of this book. I don't know how much I'm going to do. I usually try to calculate how long people would sit and listen, right? So here we go. Dear God, every single letter starts Dear God or God. And why is it so? I asked people to comment on the last video when I first talked about this, but nobody commented. It's funny how like when I just make a silly short or when YouTube automatically saves a live highlight from one of my shorts, I get a lot of comments. And people comment on different things, not necessarily on what I wish they would comment. Some people use the comment section to diss me. Oh, you're old. They might not say it like that. You're old. They they find a way, right? Or you're ugly or whatever, or And even if they don't say, "Oh, you're ugly," but when they put the vomit emoji, that's what they're saying to you. That's what they're saying to you. So, but I wish people would comment on videos like this one and like the other video I made about this. What type of novel is it when it's told, the story is told through letters? What type of novel is that? I'm going to put the challenge out there again. Maybe this time somebody will comment. So, the chapters, the structure of the chapters is such that every letter starts with Dear God, virtually every letter. And let me take a look. This edition here, I bought this copy myself because I wanted to have a copy. Not only that, but because I did not know there was a room at the school. It was up in storage space. And I remember we're doing like I don't even know what you call that when everybody gets together to clean. We're doing one of those cleanups. And one of the teachers suggested, let's open that door. Let's see what's in there. Let's see what we're going to chuck, what we're going to keep. And oh boy, we found a box with 10 copies of The Color Purple. And I was like, I bought a copy. It's all good because this one is mine. So in this edition here, I love the cover. And I know that we have that proverb, don't judge a book by its cover. But you can appreciate the story that's telling, right? And if if you read the story, you'll know that Celie was considered the ugly sister. And then we have colorism into play there because she was darker. You have also the whole good hair situation. I can make a whole video. I can make a documentary about that. Oh, oops. No, Chris Rock has already made one. So she had softer hair, and the hierarchy of blackness in beauty, it comes in different forms. So if you have colored eyes, you're supposedly prettier. If your hair is softer, then your hair is good. If if your nose is not as broad, then you have finer features. If your lips are smaller, right, then your lips are better. And I'm not saying these things are true. I'm telling it like it is, how colorism, and one of my good friends, Janice McGregor, Legacy Queen, Miss Regal World, she she told me about how colorism is racism's cousin. And I love that analogy, that comparison, because that's what it is. So Celia was considered the ugly sister. And in colorism, the darker you are, the uglier you are. The lighter you are, the prettier you are. So you can interpret this cover here as silly and netty. You can even think about later on the mistress that Mr. had. She was portrayed as prettier, and she had a very strong connection with Silly. So you can interpret a cover in many different ways, and that's the beauty of art, interpretation of art, and how you look at it. The Color Purple is by far one of my favorite books, one of my favorite novels. I love the adaptation that they did with the musical. When I talk about the musical, I'm talking about the film version of it. I know there was a musical in theater, right, about it, but I'm actually referring to the musical that was made in recent times. So, Dear God starts this one. Harpo asked his daddy why he bear me, why he beat me. Yeah, I'm getting my glasses, I promise. Beat, not bear. When I got my glasses, I'm going to be unstoppable. So, Harpo. Harpo is Mister's boy, one of his kids. Harpo was a rambunctious kid. He was Danis the Manis. He was incredibly unruly as a child. And we see this in the beginning of the novel. You can paint a picture of how hard it was for Celie to take care of the kids. The kids did not have a lot of discipline. So he was unruly as a child, but of course he grows up. There's a passage of time here. He grows up and he has a woman, Sophia. In the first adaptation of The Color Purple, I call it the first, but I'm talking about the movie in the mid 80s. Oprah Winfrey played Sophia, and she was fantastic at it. She was a fantastic choice for that role. Harpo and Sophia were in love, but Sophia had a lot of personality. She had a lot of strength, especially for a woman of color living in those times, right? In that relationship, the dynamic was that Sophia was in charge. So in this letter to God, Celie is telling somebody else's story, and she's confiding in God. All women good for, he don't finish. Those are Mister's words. He just tuck his chin over the paper like you do, remind me of Pa. So she compares her husband, her abusive husband, to her father who assaulted her multiple times. And that comparison paints another picture to the reader. There are layers and layers of how Celie's survival mechanisms work. And perhaps you get used to what's normal to you, even if it's not good. So you get used to it just because it's normal to you. Harpo asked me, how come you stubborn? He don't ask, how come you his wife? Nobody asked that. I say, just born that way, I reckon. He beat me like he beat the children. Except he don't never hardly beat them. He say, Celie, get the bell. Get the bell. I'm trying to do the accent. I can't do it. The children be outside the room, peeking through the cracks. It's all I can do not to cry. I make myself wood. I say to myself, Silly, you're a tree. That's how come I know trees fear man. Harpo say, I love somebody. I say, huh? He say, a girl. I say, you do? He say, yeah, a splint Mary. Mary, I say, you're not old enough to marry. I is, he say. I'm 17. She 15, old enough. What her mama say, I asked. Ain't talked to her mama. What her daddy say? Ain't talked to him either. Well, what she say? So, and when I talk about the beauty of African American vernacular English, and I talk about it as being more than a dialect, being another language, it is a rich dialect of, or language, if you will. The construction of the phrases, what we would call a mistake, and by we, I'm talking about academics, right? People who teach grammar for a living. Of course, when you say he do instead of he does, people get like they cringe all over the place when they just see it because, yeah, all right, he does. That's grammatically acceptable, and that's the academic way. He do, linguistically, it is acceptable because you know what is being said and you understand it, but academically, not so much. But it's part of a dialect, part of a different language. And as such, it is acceptable. There is beauty in it. And it is not, I hate to use that, but it's not broken English. It is a different type of English. Just like patois. And when you think about how language evolves and changes and brings in elements of other languages, English has its variations, and all of them have value. But in this passage here, there's several instances in which you can see examples of AAV, because that's Celie's voice. She's the one writing the letter, and that's how she would speak. So this video is approaching 15 minutes. I think I'm going to close. Yeah, I'm going to close by saying, comment this time. What type of novel is it when you have letters, when the narrative is told through letters?